So it's been about 3 months since Black Desert was released, and I figured since it seems like the cool thing to do, I'd go ahead and give my thoughts on the game as I've stopped playing at this point. But unlike a lot of people who have spoken out about the game after quitting, I'm not trying to rationalize or create some form of justification as to why I stopped playing Black Desert. Black Desert is one of the rare online games where I feel about it now the same way I did when I started playing it, but gamers, we tend to need to personally discredit something once we've lost interest in it. I don't play this game anymore because it's shit. It's this, it's that. So we kind of compile a list of cons, and then suddenly gender-locked classes, or the exaggerated benefits of the ghillie suit, or the exploits that they've never actually seen in-game or been impacted by are suddenly deal breakers. Or their favorite streamer quit, or the Twitch numbers are down, or even the core, not hidden, blatant game mechanics suddenly are a problem. And for Black Desert, you hear a lot about things like the RNG nature or the grinding as these huge nefarious negatives, but those aren't hidden. Within a week that is just inherent to the game. It's a Korean-based MMORPG. That's what they love over there. So after 2 months to turn around and be mad at those kind of things feels kind of silly. I don't sit down and watch Star Trek and then am mad that it's a sci-fi show. These things boil down to preference. I really like the RNG nature and the RNG losses that can happen in this game, but I've heard and I've read that people think that this is the absolute devil and it's their sole reason for quitting. I hate grinding, but I know some people love grinding. If it's not to your taste, that doesn't make it bad, it's just not for you. And in fact, one of the things that I respect about Black Desert, despite having problems in the East, this isn't the most popular game over there, is that what it's released, the patches that are to come, the expansions that have been dropped and the expansions that have been teased, is that it's its own experience, and looking at it, you can tell that it's just doing its own goddamn thing. Funny enough, people who are dissatisfied with current MMORPGs seem to be real quick to voice an opinion to add or change or suggest features to make this game more like the games that they're dissatisfied with, and Black Desert is just kind of ignoring them and just trucking along with their own vision. Now, one of the issues that actually made me quit is that this game is basically a single player game. It's a real struggle to try to play this game with friends. Even the things that you can do with others, you're barely even interacting with each other. It's the least multiplayer focused MMORPG that I've ever played. In fact, other people in the game are almost just like glorified NPCs with really, really good AI. And unfortunately, that leaves you, the player, interacting with just the set amount of content that the game has. And like almost any single player game, you can only do a certain thing a number of times before it's just no longer entertaining for you. And yes, in Black Desert there are a lot of things that you can do, so it takes longer to get to that point, but you do get to that point. And with the lack of other player interaction and the lack of sandbox elements that help to create dynamic content, you are left with a consumable experience, which I consumed. Now that said, if you check the forums or impressions or reviews of the game, most people who made it past the first week without being incredibly turned off by something, even if they only made it 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, they had an incredibly positive experience, especially for only $30. I remember reading countless, they were just flooding into almost every forum and subreddit that I go into with these gushingly positive threads that were so much different than the usual drivel that happens in the first week of a new MMORPG than the type of reviews that people give. Because this game was refreshing, it was different. Black Desert does its own thing. The problem is, in my opinion, it just isn't built for longevity unless you're just looking for a strict time sink. Now, personally, I think the best and the worst part of Black Desert are the graphics. Right, in the background, you're seeing some recorded footage. It's close to max settings. Most of the over-the-top combat stuff that I've seen people complain about has been turned off. I've used the in-game filter and contrast settings to kind of turn down the vibrance, and you're going to notice very little, if any, pop-up or pop-in. The game and the world, frankly, just look incredible, and with the day-night cycle that I wish was in every single game, with a world that rivals Red Dead Redemption or The Witcher 3, with character design and monster design that feels grounded in the world that it's in without feeling over the top and ridiculous, it's just incredibly immersive, to the point where it almost for the lack of a better word, transcends just good graphics, much like Chrono Trigger when it came out compared to all of the square grid sprites, or Okami, or Final Fantasy VII before the first 3D Final Fantasy, being the first 3D Final Fantasy game. You know, you can take the graphics away from those games and the games were great, but the graphics being kind of a step ahead of its competitors, or the tone being so different or fleshed out, kind of propelled those games further and made them greater in a different way than just, ooh, that's good graphics. And that's kind of what happens here. It's this level of awe and authenticity that is crazy. The problem is that 99% of people don't get that, and the pop-in will rip you right out of any type of immersion that it gives you, and the only real fix to that is just get used to it. And computers better than mine still get pop-in, and what's more is that most people aren't even playing on close to max settings. They're down in the mediums and the lows, and while certain games do retain a certain amount of the graphic fidelity if you just downplay the graphics a bit, this game on lower settings looks like a Flash game. Not, like just terrible. And unfortunately, the gameplay alone doesn't give you that awe-inspiring authenticity that the graphics basically convey in spades. People's systems and the engine with this huge pop-in problem just aren't ready yet. But that said, even though I won't actively play the game, when they release the Maritime expansion, when they release the Snow Zone expansion, I'm going to load up the game just to explore the world space again and see these new places. Like I said it before, the world is the main character in this game, and it's one of the only games ever that I've actually found myself just wandering around with no real purpose. Also, being a localization causes a whole bunch of weird issues with its accelerated content patches, because you can start to feel drowned in content just as you're getting a hold of what the game has to offer, and Black Desert does offer a lot. Things are changed and added constantly. Online resources are frequently incorrect, or they're for different version numbers or different regions' clients. Information just ends up being really hard to get a hold of, and for the more invested players who research future builds and they plan and they play around upcoming updates, timing and scheduling can play a factor. So like, if you have your armor and you've maxed it out, but in that same week a new armor set that you know you're going to equip gets released, that's frustrating. Why did you waste that time? Why did you waste those black stones to upgrade it? Yet if you didn't know what was in that patch, if it was you're going into that patch blindly and you discover new armor, it wouldn't nearly be the same issue I've seen a lot of people have. It's this strange issue that really only plagues people who are using future patch information to dictate current gameplay, and it's a weird issue, especially with our client being different in a lot of ways, right? People are asking, why is this way? Why is this a certain way? Why is this included? Why is this changed from the original? And it's just this expectation versus reality discrepancy that doesn't exist in games that don't have multiple region clients at different development stages. And while I can see people getting frustrated, it's just a byproduct of this localization process. And one thing that I do want to commend Dom on is reacting to the region. We do have a customized client. They've polled to see if we wanted auto looping. We outcried about the plus 20 upgrades to equipment, and they delayed them. They've been really good about altering what they can to suit us. Maybe they could do better laying it all out and letting us know the upcoming changes in a more timely and scheduled fashion, but I wouldn't expect that from any other game. It's only an issue here because we know what's coming out already. I just hate localizations. This happens in every single one of them. It's just a weird problem to have, but they are there. To piggyback on that, there's a lot of hate thrown at the field bosses. They're buggy, they're punishing, and honestly they're a mess. You can't even imagine the pain of doing these as a tamer. But I have a hard time hating on them because the only reason that they're in the game is that when Dom wanted to remove these from our version of the game during testing, the community was like, no, keep them in. And then Dom said, all right. It's not some conspiracy to sell more cash shop revive potions, although that probably doesn't hurt the bottom line. It's just another sample of them tailoring our client for us and for the community. They are listening. The communication is weak in some areas and strong in others. Another thing that I really want to address, as this is getting pretty long, but when you listen to me, when you listen or read other people give their 2 cents, especially online personalities, they most likely aren't the same type of gamer as you. It's a really polluted landscape of reviewers that don't quite represent the community. You have these kids who are playing these games 14 hours a day, every day. They're paying their bills with that time, and because of that, the views that they're getting, the followers, the subscribers, the sponsorships, the other current game releases that are coming out in that same week or month or quarter, the general tone or circle jerk or hot topics about a game, they all impact their outlook and their investment in that game. So you may have someone say, this game is boring now, and I've only played it for a month and it's shit, but they've sunk 300 to 400 hours in it in that month. And I don't know about you, but if I could play a game for 300 hours, I'd be pretty happy with that. Or because they are playing so much, or because of how much time they can invest in a game, they're actually interested or more prone to be interested in the type of gameplay that appeals to that. A really good example is everywhere you look in these threads or these videos that I quit Black Desert and this is why, you hear constant mention of PvP, and I would wager that a very large majority of the people that play this game don't PvP. Most of the people that I know who play this game could probably count on one hand the amount of times that they've either killed another player or that they've been killed. For that first month, I was playing with this large group of guys that played like 8 hours a day, like they were playing a lot, but they were still only like level 20. I said it in the first video that I did on Black Desert, but the more hardcore devoted players really made it sound like this game was a PvP game, but it's not. There might be PvP things to do, it's one of the activities, but it's far from the focus. And if anything, and I heard someone say this and I really liked it, they likened the game to an anime type. Black Desert is a slice of life game, and I don't want to go as far as to say people are playing it wrong, but when people have these huge gripes about staying competitive, it's like, competitive in what? In this small subsection of an activity that currently has very little meaning and is overruled by straight up numbers in most cases, alright. But I gotta tell you, if you're playing this game strictly to be the top 1%, there are better uses of that time, because the amount of time that you can put into this game is infinite, or I shouldn't say infinite, is the amount of hours in the day. And even in PvP, where that competitive nature even comes into play, people talk a lot of smack about gearing and the advantages of leveling up and all that crap. This game has two different type of 1v1 PvP matches. Either you blow the other person up and you instantly kill them because of a large gear disparity, not even a level disparity, a gear disparity. Once you hit the soft level cap, the incremental upgrades, they kind of matter, but not really. And usually you only blow someone up because they don't have enough DP, or like in most, I don't even want to say equivalent geared, most people who are at like level 53 or 54 with like a full set of plus 14, 15s, which is really doable to have, the fight is over in 2 grapples or 2 combos. And an extra level doesn't mean that it's going to take 3 combos to kill somebody. 1 less level doesn't mean that you're going to get blown up. And outside of these 1v1s, which are these like frustrating dodge roll, teleport, latency contests to see who gets the first hit, the raw number of players will almost always prevail over like a gear disparity or a level disparity. And I guess I really kind of want to wrap this up. This is going way longer, but what Black Desert offers is just a different experience that, just like a decent single player game, has the potential to enthrall you for a month, maybe longer, for $30. It's hard to be mad at that, and MMORPGs nowadays are consumable and so content driven anyway that 2 months of a great experience is a good deal. And for me, I like the game, it just ran its course for me over those 2 months, and I don't feel that I wasted my money. I don't feel that I regret any of the time that I spent in this game, and I would recommend this to anyone that may be dissatisfied with current MMORPGs. But most importantly, just because I'm no longer playing doesn't mean that the game is garbage. So there's my long rant of my thoughts of Black Desert after 3 months. Until next time, this is Fever. Peace.